In a world where every pixel on a screen flickers with a reflection of someone's life and every line of a comment echoes someone's thought, we find ourselves drawn into an unprecedented experiment on the human psyche. Never before has the collective unconscious been so exposed, erupting with such fury and intensity into public view. We awaken in a space where the facade of an idealized persona competes with grotesque masks of anonymity, where polished aesthetics stand alongside overt, uncensored hatred. And so amidst this digital noise, among streams of other people's opinions and filtered realities, we suddenly feel a sting. Perplexity gives way to irritation to burning anger, and at times to a corrosive envy that gnaws from within. This isn't merely a reaction to an external stimulus. It's not a random emotional outburst in response to someone's foolishness or another's insistent perfection. No, something deeper, more intimate lies here. Recall how sometimes just one word, one biting comment flung into the online abyss by a stranger can unleash a storm within you, or how the flawless, filtered life of a blogger about whom you seemingly know nothing suddenly strikes a chord, creating an invisible knot in your chest. Why exactly this? Why does precisely that speck in another's eye, or the glow of someone else's unattainable victory, provokes such sharp, almost physical discomfort? We stand on the threshold of a great discovery, for what we so vehemently condemn in others, or what we so painfully envy, is most often merely a distorted reflection of our own long exiled parts. The digital arena has become a grand theater where every troll, every hater, every flawless online avatar is merely a projection. These are the voices of our own inner exiles, those aspects of personality that were once rejected, suppressed, locked away in the dungeon of the unconscious. The internet, this boundless wilderness, has transformed into an echo chamber where these exiles take form, voice, and sometimes monstrous shapes to finally be seen, heard, and acknowledged. It is at this point, in the moment of greatest irritation or sharpest envy, that the key is hidden. Not in avoiding these feelings, not in fleeing from them, but in the courage to look them in the eye. For beneath the mask of another's hatred or perfection, beneath the veil of digital shadow, lies something that belongs to you, your strength, your vulnerability, your unrecognized part, longing to return home. This very negative reaction, this inner discomfort, is not a curse, but a compass pointing to the forgotten treasures of your soul. But why does this mechanism work so flawlessly? To understand this, we must return to the scene of the very first transgression. Each of us carries within us the shadow of an original exile, an echo of the moment when a part of ourself was rejected, declared undesirable, and at times dangerous. Before we first stepped into the shimmering digital labyrinth, long before our avatars became our silent representatives and words our shields and swords, a void already yawned within us, paved with forgotten qualities. This inner landscape, once fertile and wild, was divided into the permissible and the forbidden, the light and the shadow, by an unspoken but unyielding law. The world, once boundless in its acceptance of childlike spontaneity, gradually began to narrow. The voices of adults, the whispers of peers, the unspoken rules of the tribe, all of this shaped the contours of what was allowed, delineating the boundaries of individuality. Every no, every disapproving glance, every embarrassed sigh in response to a sincere expression of the soul became a brick in the wall erected around certain aspects of our personality. Thus, your inner exile was born, an invisible part of you, locked behind the walls of social approval to maintain peace with the outer world. Consider, at what specific point in your personal history did you learn this lesson? When did you realize that your ambition was not a healthy drive for growth, but boasting that elicited envy or reproach? When did healthy aggression, the ability to assert your boundaries, express disagreement, defend yourself in a torrent of words, transform into rudeness or conflict, leading to punishment or alienation? Perhaps it was the moment your sincerity, your unfiltered truth about yourself, without regard for others' opinions, was labeled inappropriate or risky, and you learn to hide your true nature behind a mask of conformity. And what about the right to make mistakes? When did vulnerability, the willingness to show your humanity rather than just a polished facade, become weakness or shame that needed to be meticulously hidden? In a world where perfection is cult-like and missteps are met with ostracism, demonstrating imperfection is perceived as an act of self-destruction. Sincerity, spontaneity, directness, these qualities vital for a full presence in the digital space for genuine connection, were once labeled undesirable as something that could lead to rejection. The irony is that these very qualities, once rejected, became the keys to a complete presence in the digital world. To be seen, one needs ambition. To be heard, one needs healthy aggression, the ability to assert oneself. To be authentic, one needs vulnerability and the right to make mistakes. But these qualities were exiled. They became part of your shadow, your inner colony of outcasts. Their energy didn't disappear. It was merely locked away, transforming and awaiting its hour to emerge, sometimes in the most unexpected and destructive forms. This moment, when you learn to hide your true nature, to conform to others' expectations, marked the birth of your inner exile, that part of your soul forced into hiding to maintain peace with the outer world. And it is this exiled energy, this suppressed truth, that now seeks an outlet in digital reality, manifesting sometimes in idealized avatars, sometimes in anonymous aggression. This is not just the story of your individual development. It is an archetypal journey undertaken by everyone who has ever tried to fit within boundaries imposed by invisible laws. The true cost of this exile is far greater than it appears at first glance, and it continues to be exacted. Within each of us resides an ancient, almost instinctual fear of rejection. This fear, inherited from times when tribal belonging meant survival, compels us to sever parts of ourselves that seem undesirable, wrong, or dangerous for social acceptance. We ourselves become the executioners of our inner exiles, banishing them beyond the conscious field, hoping they will vanish, dissolve into oblivion. But the unconscious knows no oblivion. Everything that has been exiled does not disappear. It merely accumulates power. It is the energy of an unpaid debt waiting for its hour to manifest. It does not dissolve into emptiness, but gathers into a tight knot, like an unpaid debt that will eventually demand its return. This energy bursts through the cracks in our persona, seeking an outlet, often finding it in projection onto others. Our irritation, anger, and envy towards others' qualities or manifestations are nothing more than echoes of these inner exiles, striving to be noticed and integrated. The digital world, with its endless gallery of other people's lives and anonymous judgments, becomes an ideal testing ground for this phenomenon, where every screen transforms into a portal for the outpouring of the suppressed. This mechanism is not new. For centuries, humanity has instinctively dealt with the collective shadow by choosing an external carrier for it. Recall the archaic ritual of the scapegoat, the oldest method of ridding a community of its collective sins and ailments. All undesirable qualities, fears, and vices of the community were transferred onto it like a vessel, and then it was banished or sacrificed with the belief that evil departed along with it. This was an act of pure projection, allowing society to temporarily cleanse itself without acknowledging that what was banished was a part of itself. In our time, this ritual has not vanished. It has merely transformed, taking on a new digital dimension. And if we look closely at those who provoke the strongest aversion in us in the online space, at those we are ready to mercilessly criticize or even hate, we will discover in them not just strangers, but mirrors reflecting something deeply personal. In this digital labyrinth where every click leaves a trace and every word cast into the void finds an echo, our inner exiles don't just find a voice. They take on bizarre, sometimes repulsive forms. The internet has become a stage where the drama of the suppressed unfolds, where our own shadows are projected onto others, distorting their images beyond recognition. And if we look closely, we will see them, these archetypal carriers of collective and individual shadow energy wandering the web. The first is the aggressor of the void, known as the troll, not one who engages in witty debate, but one whose sole aim is destruction. He feeds on chaos. His words are not arrows of reason, but venomous barbs aimed at inflicting pain. His comments are anonymous, impersonal, devoid of any constructive thought, merely a pure, distilled desire to provoke, destabilize, and sow discord. His arsenal includes cynicism, denigration, and insults, all for the sake of an instantaneous feeling of power over others' emotions. He is the embodiment of our own suppressed aggression, that dark side yearning to break free but confined within the prison of social decorum. He is a distorted mirror of those impulses we fear to acknowledge, those that could destroy if given free rein. The second is the obsessed accuser or hater. His hatred is not random, it is focused. He selects a victim, a celebrity, a politician, or even just a neighbor in his feed, and meticulously, with painless persistence, begins to tear them apart. His comments are not mere words. They are mantras of condemnation, repeated over and over, like an exorcism ritual for his own demons that he sees in another. His anger is irrational, his arguments strained, yet in his eyes, staring through the screen, a righteous fire burns. He is the one who sees in the object of his condemnation all his unrealized ambitions, all his failures, all his unaccepted qualities within himself. And finally, the pretender of ideal, the influencer who creates an absurdly perfect online avatar. His life is an endless stream of perfect breakfasts, flawless travels, happy smiles, and unrealistic achievements. He carries the burden of an ideal he himself created, and beneath this weight lies his true self, banished to the shadow. He provokes not anger, but a deep, corrosive envy that compels us to compare our mundane reality with his glittering yet false one. In him we see our own craving for recognition, our need to be loved and perfect, our fear of being not enough. Now pause for a moment, reflect. What types of people in the context of social media and anonymous comments provoke irrational hatred, contempt, or irritation in you? Perhaps it's those who flaunt their wealth, or those who aggressively defend their viewpoint, or perhaps those who seem too happy, too successful, too perfect. I recall a story. Once in the depths of a forum, I observed an obsessed accuser. Let's call him Ulysses. He dedicated years of his life to tormenting a well-known travel blogger. Every new photo, video, and post from the blogger was met by Ulysses with a barrage of venomous comments. He'd find the tiniest inconsistencies, seek out signs of deceit, accuse the blogger of hypocrisy and feigned joy. He spent nights analyzing someone else's life like a detective obsessed with finding incriminating evidence. His words conveyed not just criticism, but a deep, almost physical pain. One day in one of his rare confessions on another, more private forum, Ulysses mentioned that he had once dreamed of traveling the world, but had never been able to escape his small town. He was stuck, and the blogger was not. And then it became clear. Every scathing comment from Ulysses wasn't about the blogger, but about his own unrealized self, his inner exile who could never leave the shores of his unfulfilled hopes. The blogger was merely a canvas onto which Ulysses projected his frustration, his envy, his suppressed yearning for freedom and adventure. His hatred was merely the distorted cry of his own heart, which longed to live a different life. These figures, these shadows that roam the digital expanse, are not merely external irritants. They are our mirrors. And the intensity of our reaction to them is not random, but a clue about which parts of ourselves we have exiled, which rights we have denied ourselves, which abilities we have buried under layers of shame or fear. For what evokes the strongest repulsion in us towards others is often merely a distorted reflection of what we ourselves have suppressed. And in this distortion, in this grimace of hatred or contempt, lies something valuable, something awaiting its liberation. We have spoken of shadows, of digital phantoms born from our own unrecognized depths. But what if these specters, these demons we encounter in the boundless expanse of the net, are not merely hostile forces, but distorted echoes of something vitally important slumbering within us? Every exiled quality, every suppressed impulse holds a hidden gift within it, awaiting its return. Consider the aggressor of the void, the one who spews venom in comments, sowing chaos and destruction, whose pleasure lies in provocation. In his frantic, aimless malice, in this wild, uncontrollable rage, lies an energy that, when accepted and consciously directed, becomes a force of colossal power. This is not merely anger, but the right to aggressive self-defense, to unwavering boundary setting, to a resolute will to change what is false and unjust. It is the very energy capable of destroying the obsolete to clear a path for the new and true. If you have ever suppressed your righteous anger, your ability to say a firm no to intrusion, your inner strength to resist injustice, you have exiled this aspect to the shadow. You may have forbidden yourself from being strong, from being resolute, from being one who can stand for their truth, preferring peace at the cost of your own suppression. Next, the obsessed accuser, whose hatred for another's success or visibility poisons the digital air, and whose criticism is merely a mask for deep envy. In his venomous projection, in this ceaseless stream of condemnation, lies a powerful driving force capable of transforming the world. This is the undistorted striving for excellence, for self-recognition, for one's own greatness, for achieving the impossible. It is the right to ambition, to healthy competition, to a genuine desire to surpass oneself and others, to be the best version of oneself. When we fear being too ambitious, too noticeable, too successful, when we suppress our desire to be recognized for our achievements, we extinguish this spark. We forbid ourselves from dreaming bigger, striving for peaks, accepting our thirst for recognition as a natural and healthy part of the human experience, leaving it to fester in the dungeons of the shadow. And finally, the pretender of ideal, this flawless digital avatar woven from filtered smiles and carefully chosen phrases, who evokes in us a mix of admiration, irrational envy, and sometimes deep repulsion. Behind his impeccable yet equally false mask lies a deep, primal need for love, for unconditional acceptance, for genuine connection. This is the right to true self-expression, to unbridled creativity, to being seen and loved for who you are, with all your imperfections and vulnerabilities. When we fear showing our vulnerability, our true nature, our imperfect sides, when we strive to create an image rather than just being ourselves, we exile this right. We forbid ourselves from being sincere, from being authentic, from being those who are loved not for a flawless facade, but for the depth and genuineness of their soul. Each of these demons is merely a distorted reflection of what was once exiled from our inner kingdom, bound by chains of fear and shame. They are not enemies, but messengers, pointing to the treasures we have hidden from ourselves, to the strengths we refuse to acknowledge as our own, fearing judgment or rejection. And in this refusal lies not only pain, but also a profound misunderstanding of ourselves, a distortion of our path. For how can one truly manifest in the world? How can one build genuine connections and achieve true success if the most powerful drivers of our self remain imprisoned in the dungeon of the shadow, and we, in our blind pursuit of avoiding their manifestation, only sink deeper into the labyrinth of self-deception? Every time you turn away from the mirror that the digital arena so mercilessly exposes, you miss an opportunity. We have spoken of the shadows that roam the internet, of those demons whose faces are both repulsive and alluring. But what if your fear of becoming like them, a troll, a hater, a faceless yet flawless influencer, paralyzes you, forcing you to make decisions that turn into invisible shackles? How does this profound dread, this whisper of the exile within, lead you down a path where authenticity becomes a luxury and self-expression a risky venture? Consider Maria. She dreamed of writing, of sharing her thoughts, but every time she saw scathing comments under other authors' posts, a chilling fear rose within her. She feared being perceived as an aggressor of the void if her words were too sharp, or an obsessed accuser if she dared to criticize. So Maria, instead of expressing her incisive thoughts, wrote vague, non-committal text that dissolved into the stream. Her inner ambition, her right to a firm yet honest stance, were exiled, and she suffered from creative barrenness, never finding her voice in the noise of the internet. Her failure wasn't due to a lack of talent, but to a paralyzing fear of being misunderstood, of becoming one of those she so despised. Or consider Dmitri. He was a master in his field, but his professional network profile was a paragon of sterile perfection. Every photo, every phrase was meticulously crafted, devoid of the slightest flaw. He feared becoming a pretender of ideal, someone he himself considered empty and superficial, but his fear of being vulnerable, of showing even a hint of imperfection, compelled him to create precisely such a false image. As a result, instead of attracting like-minded individuals, he alienated them with his inaccessibility. People sensed the falseness, even if unconsciously. He avoided live discussions, fearing that his authentic, not yet perfect knowledge would be exposed. His fear of revealing his true self, with all his weaknesses and strengths, transformed his online presence into a prison where he was his own warden. And what about Elena? She saw how bloggers profited from their sincerity, from their lively, sometimes even aggressive reactions to injustice. Anger simmered within her about what was happening around her, but she feared being like the haters whose comments she so often saw. She suppressed her healthy aggression, her right to indignation, to assert boundaries. Instead of speaking out, she silently scrolled through her feed, feeling a growing heaviness inside. Her failure was a missed opportunity to be heard, to be someone who could influence, who wasn't afraid to be inconvenient. Her fear of becoming an obsessed accuser deprived her of the strength necessary for genuine self-expression and the defense of her values. Perhaps at this moment you feel resistance, an inner voice whispering, "But I'm just being cautious. I don't want to be toxic. I'm just protecting myself from them." And this is perfectly natural. We are conditioned to avoid pain, to avoid judgment. But consider, isn't this caution actually a trap set by your own exile? Is it not the wall built by the fear of being like those you so desperately reject? For the paradox is that by avoiding the shadow, we give it even greater power. We don't become free. We merely change the form of our confinement. We don't gain authenticity. We simply retreat into an even deeper hiding place within our soul, depriving ourselves of the fullness of life, depriving others of the chance to see our true selves. This fear, this internal censorship, deprives you not only of the freedom to be, but also of the ability to see. It obscures your perception, preventing you from noticing that some of the very qualities you so diligently suppress are in fact powerful resources. And if we speak of what repels, it's equally important to look at what attracts, what evokes admiration and envy, for in this too lies another, no less insidious projection. The labyrinth of the digital self, as we've discussed, is full of ghosts and reflections. We have explored the shadows that haunt us in hatred and aggression, unmasking the faces of exiles that burst forth as trolls and haters. We've seen how suppressed aggression and unrealized ambitions take form in online conflicts, and how the fear of vulnerability creates idealized but empty masks. But there is another facet to this mirror, far less obvious yet no less insidious, one that blinds with its brilliance. This is the golden shadow, that part of ourselves that for some unknown reason we deem too bright, too bold, too powerful for our own lives. Instead of embodying these gifts, these inner exiles carrying the potential for greatness were rejected and placed on a pedestal in someone else. We admire them from afar, unaware that we are gazing upon our own unrecognized greatness. In the digital realm, this mechanism gains particular power. We scroll through feeds, immersing ourselves in an ocean of others' achievements, wit, and charisma. We admire bloggers whose words flow like a river, commentators whose remarks are sharp as a razor, or even those virtuoso trolls who seemingly manipulate the emotions of the masses with ease, displaying a kind of sophisticated, albeit destructive, boldness. And in every such act of admiration, in every sigh of "I wish I could do that," lies an act of self-sabotage. Pause for a moment and look within. Who is your unspoken idol in this digital universe? Whose image evokes sincere, sometimes almost painful, admiration in you? It might be a successful entrepreneur whose energy bubbles over, or a charismatic speaker capable of captivating an audience, or someone who bypasses all moral barriers with unsettling ease, displaying raw, primal power. What are your own talents? What unrealized abilities? What parts of your authentic but suppressed essence have you gifted to this image, denying them within yourself? Every time we project our golden shadow onto another, we reinforce the prison walls for our inner exile. We tell ourselves, yeah, that's not mine, that's his or her gift. We surrender to another what should be ours by birthright. We admire someone else's courage, but fear expressing our own opinion. We envy another's success, but are afraid to start our own venture. We are impressed by another's creativity, but do not unleash our own imagination. This act of constant alienation drains our energy, extinguishes our inner fire, transforming potential into the phantom pain of a life unlived. We remain frozen in the role of perpetual spectators, while our own stories remain unwritten, our songs unsung. Your brightest qualities, your hidden strengths, your undiscovered gifts, these are the very inner exiles languishing in captivity while you bow before their reflections in others' lives. They await their moment to be acknowledged and integrated, to cease being mere objects of external admiration and become an internal driving force. Understanding this mechanism is the first step toward liberation. There's a path that allows not only for the recognition of these projections, but also for an act of genuine return, integrating disparate parts of oneself into a whole, powerful self. We have come a long way, gazing into the abyss of the digital mirror and recognizing they're not only the faces of the inner exiles, the aggressor of the void, the obsessed accuser, the pretender of ideal, but also the golden shadow shining with another's light. We have seen how these phantoms, born from fear and suppression, burst forth in a whirlwind of anonymous comments and curated online personas. But knowledge without action is just another shadow cast by the mind. The time has come not just to observe, but to reclaim what has been exiled. The true philosophy of this path is not in battling the external manifestations of the shadow, but in reclaiming power over one's own inner world. This is a call to stop being a victim of projections and instead become their alchemist. Every strong emotion triggered by someone else's post, comment, or image is a beacon pointing to a hidden part of ourselves. A negative reaction, whether it's burning hatred for a hater, contempt for a troll, or envy of someone else's success, is a signal. Similarly, admiration for a flawless blogger or another person's idealized lifestyle isn't just mere liking. It's a reflection of our own unmanifested power, our golden shadow. I propose a simple yet profound exercise. The next time you encounter something in the digital space that evokes a strong emotional response, be it anger, disgust, envy, or excessive admiration, pause. Don't rush to react in your usual way, whether by replying, blocking, or silently judging. Instead, ask yourself, what suppressed part of myself am I seeing in this person, this image, this situation? If it's the anger and aggression of a troll, ask, what right to anger, to setting boundaries, to showing strength have I banished within myself? What part of me fears being as direct or even uncomfortable as this person, even in their distorted form? If it's burning envy of someone's success, ask, what ambition, what desire for recognition, what capacity for creating something meaningful am I rejecting within myself? And when you encounter something that evokes overwhelming admiration, making you feel insignificant in the face of another's brilliance, ask, what inherent beauty, talent, charisma, or capacity for self-expression am I projecting onto this person instead of acknowledging it within myself? Write down these thoughts. Realize that the energy you expend on reaction is actually your own energy trapped in the projection. At this moment, you are not just an observer. You are a repatriate, bringing your inner exiles home. You begin to reclaim power from these external mirrors, returning it to where it belongs, the core of your own being. This is not an excuse for others' behavior, but rather a deep internal work. You don't become a troll or a hater. Instead, you integrate the raw, untamed energy that fuels their actions and learn to use it for your own growth. This process is not instant healing, but a continuous journey back to yourself. Each act of recognition and integration makes you more whole, more resilient to external manipulations, and freer to express your authentic self. You stop being an echo of others' dramas and begin to sound with your own voice. And when these inner exiles find their home, they stop knocking on the doors of others' lives, demanding attention. However, beyond this individual path of return, there's a broader canvas woven from these digital threads. There is a collective shadow that shapes not only personal dramas, but entire societal narratives. This involves not only what we project, but also how the digital world itself, its architecture and invisible algorithms, influences the manifestation of these shadows. And that is a completely different story, one that requires a separate, deeper dive.